The heat was the worst part at first. It made Rickon Stark's skin itch as if it were trying to crawl off his bones. In the kennels, cold had been a constant, sharp, honest, unkind but simple. Warmth in White Harbor was soft and strange, like a lie a man might want to believe. It seeped into him and drew out pains he had learned to ignore, made his bruises throb, made his stomach cramp with the memory of hunger. Maester Theomar's hands were gentle, though his eyes were not. He cleaned the raw rings around Rickon's wrists, murmuring words that sounded like prayers and counts all at once. The old man smelled of ink and herbs and smoke. His chain clinked softly when he leaned close. "Osha," Maester the Omar said without looking up, "hold the boy's arm steady." Osha's fingers closed around Rickon's forearm, careful but firm. Her touch was rough with calluses. Rickon did not flinch. He had learned in Winterfell that flinching was a kind of entertainment. Wyman Manderly watched from near the hearth. His great bulk turned half toward the fire as if warming himself, but his attention never left Rickon. He said nothing for a long time, and in that silence Rickon felt the weight of what had happened in the smaller hall. Knees bent, oaths spoken, the word king hovering like a raven over a battlefield. Davos Seaworth stood by the door, shifting as if the chamber were too small for his thoughts. His eyes kept sliding to Rickon, then away, then back again. He looked like a man trying to decide which truth would drown him first. "Lord Wyman," Davos said at last, voice low, "if word spreads, if Roose Bolton hears." "He will," Wyman Manderly replied, calm as a tide. "He has ears everywhere. That is why we must decide what he hears, and when." He turned his head slightly, rings catching firelight. "The boy lives. That alone is a blade. We do not swing it until the edge is sharp." Osha's gaze flicked up, fierce. "He's not a blade," she snapped. "He's a child." Wyman Manderly's eyes softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "He is both," he said quietly. "The North has been cut open. A child can bleed as well as any man." Rickon's throat tightened. He hated being spoken of as if he were a thing. He had been a thing in Ramsay Bolton's yard. He had promised himself he would never be anyone's leash again. Maester the Omar dabbed salve across the worst of the chafing. "The skin will mend," he murmured. "Some scars do not." Rickon stared into the fire, watching logs crack and shift. He remembered a different fire, Winterfell's courtyard, torches along the walls, Ramsay Bolton's smile. Heat could be comfort. Heat could also be threat. Shaggydog lifted his head, ears pricked. The direwolf's eyes tracked every movement in the room, as if the wolf did not believe walls could keep danger out. Wyman Manderly took a step closer, cane tapping stone. "Rickon Stark," he said, and the way he used the name made it feel heavier, older. "Do you know what it means for you to be alive?" Rickon's jaw set. "It means Ramsay Bolton will chase," he said. A grim approval flickered over Wyman Manderly's face. "Aye, and it means men will remember they once followed wolves." He lowered his voice. "It means Roose Bolton's hold is not as tight as he believes." Davos's mouth twisted. "And what of Stannis Baratheon?" he asked, as if the name were a stone in his mouth. "I was sent to find a Stark for him, for his claim. If I return with news that the boy is here..." Wyman Manderly's gaze cut to him, cold as the sea. "You return with the truth that saves the North," he said. "Not the truth that saves a southern king's pride." Osha's fingers tightened briefly on Rickon's arm, not painful, warning. Davos held Wyman Manderly's gaze, torn. "I've served men who burned for less," he said. "I've watched good men die because they chose the wrong oath." Wyman Manderly's smile was thin. "Then choose the right one now," he said. Rickon swallowed. "My brother," he said suddenly, voice raw. "Jon Snow. Sansa Stark. Are they?" Davos blinked, startled by the question, as if he'd forgotten Rickon was a boy with family. "Alive?" Davos said, and the word landed like sunlight. "Last I saw, Jon Snow at Castle Black. Sansa Stark. She fled. She found him." Rickon's chest tightened so hard it hurt. Alive. The word was a door cracking open. He felt something he did not trust, hope, bright and dangerous. Wyman Manderly's gaze turned distant, calculating. Then we will bring them together, he murmured, as if speaking to himself. A wolf pack, not a lone cub. Maester the Omar finished bandaging Rickon's wrists and sat back. There, he said softly. A start. Rickon flexed his fingers. The iron's bite was gone, but the memory remained. He looked at Shaggydog, at the scarlet stain on the wolf's bound shoulder, and saw the same truth there, wounds that healed, and wounds that became part of you. Wyman Manderly leaned closer, voice low enough to feel like a secret. You will learn, he said. You will eat. You will sleep in a bed. You will let the maester mend you. His eyes sharpened. And when you stand before the north again, you will not look like prey. Rickon held his gaze. I'm not prey, Rickon said. Wyman Manderly's smile deepened, pleased and grim. Good, he said, because the hunters are coming. Wyman Manderly wrote like a man laying traps. He did not rush. He chose each word as if it were a stone placed in a wall, each seal pressed into wax as if it were a nail driven into an enemy's throat. Rickon sat in the corner of the solar, wrapped in a cloak that swallowed his thin frame. Shaggydog rested his head on Rickon's boot, eyes half-lidded, but Rickon could feel the wolf listening. Osha stood behind Rickon, arms crossed, her gaze sweeping the room with a hunter's suspicion. She trusted Wyman Manderly only because she had seen his men kneel, and because the fire in his eyes was not Bolton fire. Maester the Omar read names aloud as Wyman Manderly worked. Lady Lyanna Mormont, he murmured. Lord Robert Glover. Lady Meege Mormont's kin. House Serwyn's steward. The Tall Hearts, what remains of them. A runner to Deepwood Mott by the backtrack. A ship captain sworn to silence. Davos Seaworth shifted, hands flexing. If you send ravens, the Dreadfort will. They will not, Wyman Manderly said, without looking up. Not these. He lifted one letter and tapped its seal with a thick finger. Some go by hand. Some go hidden in fish barrels. Some go in the bellies of gulls. His mouth curved. And one goes openly, so Roose Bolton thinks he knows our game. He wrote that open letter with a smile, the kind of smile a butcher wore when he sharpened his cleaver. It was addressed to Lord Roose Bolton in Winterfell. It spoke of grain, of trade, of loyalty and prayers for peace in hard winter. It offered salt fish and ship nails and a promise of obedience. The lie was so thick Rickon could almost taste it. Osha made a sound in her throat. He'll see through it, she muttered. Wyman Manderly pressed his seal into the wax anyway. He will see what he expects, he said. Roose Bolton expects fat Wyman Manderly to survive. He expects me to kneel and grin and hoard my coin. He leaned back, exhaling, and for a moment his face looked older, heavier. He does not expect me to bare my teeth. Maester the Omar slid another parchment forward. And Castle Black, he said quietly. Davos's eyes sharpened. Jon Snow, he murmured as if testing the name. Wyman Manderly's gaze met his. Jon Snow, he repeated. The bastard who wears a Stark's honor on his shoulders. He glanced toward Rickon. The brother, the sword, the one men will follow into death. Rickon's throat tightened again. He had only scraps of memory of Jon Snow, dark hair, a half smile, a voice that always seemed to be leaving, as if Jon Snow had been born with one foot outside the door. But the idea of him, alive, coming, filled Rickon with a fierce ache. Wyman Manderly wrote the letter himself. Shorter than the others, harder. He did not waste words on honey. He wrote, Rickon Stark lives. He is in White Harbor. The north is stirring. Come by sea if you can. Come by snow if you must. Come before the Boltons crush what remains. When he finished, he held the parchment a moment, staring at it as if weighing whether ink could change the world. Then he sealed it and slid it toward Davos. You will take this, Wyman Manderly said. Davos stared down at the seal. His fingers hovered, then closed around the letter as if it were hot. Stannis Baratheon, he began. Wyman Manderly's voice cut through him, gentle but firm in a way that felt more dangerous than shouting. Stannis Baratheon is a man, he said. The North is a land. Choose the one that will still exist when winter ends. Davos's jaw worked. He looked at Rickon, at the boy's bruised wrists and stubborn eyes, at the direwolf's head resting like a crown at the boy's feet. Finally, Davos nodded once. He said hoarsely. I'll go. Wyman Manderly's gaze softened a fraction. Good, he said. And you will carry another lie with you. Davos frowned. Wyman Manderly tapped the open letter to Roose Bolton. This goes by Raven, he said. Let Winterfell know White Harbor bends. His smile returned, thin as wire. While the North stands behind closed doors, Maester the Omar cleared his throat. And the boy? He asked quietly. Wyman Manderly's gaze slid to Rickon. He stays hidden until the right moment, he said. We will feed the city rumors that Ramsay Bolton killed him in the woods. We will weep loudly, so spies hear. We will bury an empty coffin if we must. He leaned on his cane and looked down at Rickon with something like reverence and pity tangled together. And when the time comes, we will raise him like a banner in the wind. Rickon's fingers curled in the cloak's fabric. I won't hide forever, he said. Wyman Manderly's eyes gleamed. No, he agreed. You will not. Outside the solar, bells rang somewhere in White Harbor, their sound rolling through stone like a distant tide. Rickon listened, and in that sound he imagined ravens lifting into gray sky, ships cutting through black water, men stirring in frozen halls. He imagined Ramsay Bolton reading lies and smiling, and he imagined the day Ramsay Bolton's smile would break. Winterfell did not take losing lightly. It was a castle built to endure, and it hated being cheated. Ramsay Bolton learned of Rickon Stark's escape at dawn, when the kennel guard was found with his throat opened and the chain hanging empty like a snapped leash. He did not shout. He did not rage the way men expected. He smiled, slow and thoughtful, as if someone had offered him a gift. Then he began to peel Winterfell apart until he found the rot. They found Beth Castle in the kitchens before midday. She tried to run. She made it to the yard before a hound took her leg. Ramsay Bolton watched her dragged back by her hair, snow sticking to her tears. Roose Bolton stood beside his son, pale and still as if carved. His eyes did not leave Ramsay's face. You played with the boy, Roose Bolton said quietly, and now he has slipped your hand. Ramsay Bolton's smile did not falter. He ran, Ramsay Bolton murmured. That's what makes it sweet. They brought Beth to the Godswood, because Ramsay Bolton liked the old god's silence when he punished. Snow lay thick beneath the heart tree. The weirwood's red leaves were gone in winter, but its carved face still watched, mouth twisted, eyes bleeding sap that looked too much like blood. Beth knelt in the snow, shaking so hard her teeth clicked. Ramsay Bolton crouched before her with a torch in one hand, the flame bright against the dark. He tilted his head, studying her as if she were a question. How did they go? He asked softly. Beth sobbed. Please. Ramsay Bolton's torch drifted closer, heat licking her cheek. Tell me, he whispered. Did the wolf boy cry when he left? Did he look back at Winterfell? Did he howl? Beth shook her head, choking. Ramsay Bolton sighed as if disappointed. He straightened and glanced toward the shadows where Theon Greyjoy hung chained to a tree, wrists raw, face swollen. Theon's eyes were wide and empty, but there was fear in them still. Fear and a faint, desperate guilt. Ramsay Bolton walked to Theon Greyjoy and cupped his bruised jaw with a gloved hand. Reek, he murmured. Did you help them? Theon Greyjoy flinched. No, he rasped. His voice was broken. No, please. Ramsay Bolton's fingers tightened, smiling. Liar, he said gently. Roose Bolton watched, expression unreadable. We must send riders, he said. We must seal the roads. Ramsay Bolton laughed softly. We have riders, he said. We have hounds. We have men who can smell fear. He leaned close to Theon Greyjoy, voice almost tender. "And we have you," Theon Greyjoy whimpered. Ramsay Bolton turned back to Beth Castle. "You opened a door," he told her, and his tone was almost conversational. "You thought you were saving a Stark. You thought the old stories would protect you." He crouched again, torch hovering. "Do you know what happens to girls who believe stories?" Beth's sob turned into a thin scream as Ramsay Bolton pressed the flame close enough to blister skin. He did not burn her long. He did not need to. He wanted her to feel the edge, not the end. "Stop," Roose Bolton said quietly. Ramsay Bolton paused, glancing up with a child's curiosity. "Why?" he asked. "Because you are wasting time," Roose Bolton replied. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "The boy is worth more alive than dead. Our enemies will rally to him. We must cut the roots before the tree stands." Ramsay Bolton's eyes narrowed, the smile thinning. For a heartbeat, father and son stared at each other. One cold, one cruel. Then Ramsay Bolton's smile returned, wider, as if he had learned something about his father's limits. Ramsay Bolton said. "Time." He stepped back from Beth and nodded to a soldier. "Hang her," he said lightly, "and hang her father too, if he still draws breath. Let the kitchens remember." Beth's scream turned into a sobbing gasp as men hauled her up. Ramsay Bolton walked to the weirwood and pressed a hand against its pale bark, as if listening. "Find the hunters," he murmured. "Find the trail, and if you find anyone who helped." His eyes flicked to Theon Greyjoy. "Bring them to me." Roose Bolton's gaze slid toward the hounds, toward the men waiting for orders. "And send ravens," he said, "to every house. Demand hostages. Demand proof of loyalty. If Wyman Manderly grows fat on Stark dreams, we will starve him." Ramsay Bolton's laughter was soft and sharp. "Let him," he said. "Let him hide the boy in fish barrels. I'll drag him out by his hair." He glanced back at Theon Greyjoy, and the tenderness vanished. "And you," he whispered, "you will help me smell him." Theon Greyjoy's eyes squeezed shut, tears freezing on his lashes. He shook his head, a helpless, broken motion. Ramsay Bolton smiled anyway, because in Winterfell, helplessness was a kind of obedience. Above them, the weirwood's carved face stared down, silent and ancient, as if it had seen 1,000 lords rise and fall and did not care which skin they wore. But somewhere beyond Winterfell's walls, a living wolf had slipped into the snow, and the North's old stories were beginning to move again. The North did not rise like a wave. It rose like ice forming on a river, slow at first, almost invisible, then suddenly thick enough to bear weight. In Wyman Manderly's war room, men argued in whispers that felt louder than shouting. Their breath steamed in the cold air despite the braziers, because fear made warmth thin. "They will take our sons," Robert Glover said, voice tight. "Roose Bolton will demand hostages, and if we refuse, if we kneel, he'll take them anyway," Lyanna Mormont snapped. "And he'll take our daughters too and call it peace." A lord from a smaller house, Serwyn's steward, thin-faced and trembling, wrung his hands. "Winterfell's walls," he began. Wyman Manderly cut him off with a tap of his cane against the map. "Walls can be climbed," he said. "Doors can be opened. Men can be bought." His eyes gleamed. "And men can be reminded." Davos Seaworth watched them with an outsider's wary gaze, as if he were standing among wolves deciding whether to eat him. He held the letter to Jon Snow sealed in wax, but he had not yet left. Wyman Manderly wanted him to hear the full shape of the plan. "They'll strike White Harbor," one captain muttered. "If they suspect." "They suspect everything," Wyman Manderly replied. "That is why we give them something easy to suspect." His gaze slid to the men around the table. "We will make it seem we are afraid. We will send letters to Winterfell that drip obedience. We will let a whisper escape that the boy died in the Wolfswood." His mouth curved. "And while they nod and congratulate themselves, we gather." Robert Glover's jaw clenched. "Gather what?" he demanded. "Half the North is broken. Half is hungry. The Umbers are split. The Karstarks. The Karstarks are Bolton dogs. Lyanna Mormont spat. Wyman Manderly's eyes narrowed. Not all dogs bite for love, he said. Some bite because the leash is tight. He leaned over the map and traced the white knife with his cane. Then the winding roads leading to Moat Cailin, then to Winterfell. We do not march straight, he said. We do not give Ramsay Bolton a field to play on. We bleed him. We cut his supply. We make his allies doubt. His gaze sharpened. We force Roose Bolton to choose between holding Winterfell and holding the North. Davos's voice broke in, rough. And Jon Snow? He asked. If he comes, if he brings wildlings. Some men stiffened at that word. Lyanna Mormont's eyes flashed. If Jon Snow comes, she said fiercely. He comes as Stark blood, whether bastard or not. He comes with a sword. I take 10,000 wildlings over one Bolton. Robert Glover grimaced. They're savages. They're alive, Lyanna Mormont snapped. And alive men fight. Wyman Manderly lifted a hand. Jon Snow will come, he said, and Sansa Stark may come with him. We will not split wolves against wolves. He glanced toward the shadow where Rickon Saturday. We need them united, or we die separate. Rickon's chest tightened. United. He pictured Jon Snow's face, imagined Sansa Stark's voice. He had been alone so long that the thought of family felt unreal, like a song heard through a wall. Captain cleared his throat. And the boy? He asked, eyes flicking toward Rickon and away again, as if afraid to look too long. Do we show him? Do we ride him north to Rally? Wyman Manderly's gaze sharpened. Not yet, he said. Not until the first knots of rope are cut. He tapped the map near the Dreadfort. Roose Bolton's strength is fear and distance. If we can take his eyes, if we can silence his spies, then the boy can be seen without dying on the spot. Lyanna Mormont leaned forward, her small face fierce. Let him speak, she said suddenly, pointing at Rickon. He's not a statue. The room went quiet. Men turned, reluctant, toward the shadowed corner. Rickon stood. The move was small, but it felt like stepping onto ice that might crack. Shaggydog rose with him, huge beside him, blood-dark fur catching firelight. Rickon walked toward the table. The men parted slightly, unconsciously making space. He stopped at the map, staring at the inked outline of Winterfell. My home, he said quietly. Wyman Manderly watched him, eyes intent. Rickon lifted his gaze to the men around the table. Roose Bolton will take hostages, Rickon said. Ramsay Bolton will kill whoever he can reach. They will do that whether you kneel or stand. His voice roughened. I was chained in their yard. I watched men die because they still whispered Stark. He swallowed, forcing the words out like stones. If you're afraid, be afraid. But be afraid of the right thing. Silence held the room. Lyanna Mormont nodded once, satisfied, as if Rickon had passed a test. Robert Glover's face tightened, conflict visible. He's a boy, he muttered. Rickon met his eyes. I'm a Stark, Rickon said. Something shifted then, not all the way, not cleanly, but enough. Men looked at the map differently. The word Stark lay across it like a shadow and a promise. Wyman Manderly exhaled. Slow. Good, he murmured. Then we move as wolves move. Quiet until the bite. Davos Seaworth tucked the sealed letter into his cloak, fingers closing around it as if anchoring himself. I'll bring him word, he said. Wyman Manderly nodded. Bring him truth, he replied. And bring him fast. Outside the war room, White Harbor's bells rang again, their sound rolling through stone and snow. Rickon listened, imagining the sound traveling north into frozen forests, into halls where men pretended to sleep. The North was not asleep. It was only waiting. The sea did not care about kings. It did not care about oaths or bloodlines or the old names men carved into stone. It only cared about depth and cold and the way it could swallow a man without leaving a mark. Davos Seaworth stood on the deck as White Harbor's lights dwindled behind him, his cloak snapping in the wind like a torn sail. The ship was small, fast, chosen for speed rather than comfort. Wyman Manderly had given him a captain he trusted and a crew who knew how to keep their mouths shut. The letter to Jon Snow was tucked inside Davos's coat, close to his chest where the warmth of his body might keep the wax from cracking. As if wax were the thing that mattered. Spray struck his face, freezing on his beard. The wind tasted of iron and salt. The sailors shouted to each other, hauling rope with numb hands, their voices ripped away by gale. Davos gripped the railing and stared into the black water, mind churning. Stannis Baratheon's face rose in his thoughts. Hard, burning, righteous. Davos had followed him through storms and war, had lost fingers for him, had watched him burn men and call it justice. Davos had believed, because believing was easier than floating in a world without anchors. And now there was a boy in White Harbor with bruised wrists and a direwolf at his feet. A boy who had looked Davos in the eye and asked about his siblings as if that question were more important than crowns. Davos swallowed, throat tight. 7 forgive me, he muttered into the wind, though he did not know which god he meant. In the north, men prayed to trees. In the south, to seps. Davos had prayed to anything that might keep him alive long enough to do right by the dead. A sailor stumbled past, cursing. Storm's coming hard, he barked. We'll be lucky to make Eastwatch without losing the mast. Davos nodded, though his stomach clenched. He had lived on the sea long enough to know what winter storms could do. He had watched men vanish beneath waves like tossed stones. He pressed a hand to the letter beneath his cloak, feeling the hard shape of the seal. Rickon Stark lives, it said, though ink could not speak. Come. A sudden swell rocked the ship, tilting the world. Davos's boots slid on wet deck. He caught himself, knuckles white on rope. In the darkness, he remembered another boy, Edric Storm, Stannis Baratheon's bastard nephew. Remembered the child's terrified eyes as Melisandre had spoken of king's blood and sacrifice. Davos had smuggled that boy away to save him from fire. Now he was carrying another boy's life in the opposite direction, toward war. He looked up at the storm clouds thickening overhead and wondered if he was saving the north or merely feeding it another sacrifice. The ship plunged into a trough, water rising like a wall. Sailors shouted, ropes snapping taut. The mast groaned. Davos braced himself and whispered the words Wyman Manderly had said with such quiet certainty. Choose the land that will still exist when winter ends. The sea roared around him, indifferent, but Davos held the letter like a promise. And in the heart of the storm, he made himself believe that ink and wax could carry more weight than crowns. That a bastard at the wall might move faster for family than any king ever did for duty. Castle Black was colder than White Harbor, colder even than Winterfell's shadowed halls. The wall's presence turned cold into something alive, an animal pressing its weight against the world. Ice groaned in the night. Wind screamed along the battlements like a thing hungry for flesh. Jon Snow held the letter in his hand as if it might bite him. The green wax seal was unfamiliar, but the weight of it was heavy. Wyman Manderly's name sat on the parchment like a stone. Sansa Stark stood at Jon Snow's shoulder, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were pale. She had learned to keep her face still, to make pain and fear into something private. But her eyes betrayed her now, wide, bright with something too sharp to be hope. Tormund Giantsbane leaned against a post, arms crossed, watching Jon Snow with the blunt impatience of a man who preferred battles to ink. Ghost lay near the table, white fur stark against dark wood, eyes half-lidded but awake. Melisandre lingered near the hearth, a red shadow, her gaze fixed on Jon Snow as if she were reading something in the air around him. Jon Snow broke the seal. His fingers were steady, but something in his chest shook as he unfolded the parchment. He read once, silent, then again slower. Each word hit like a hammer. Rickon Stark lives. White Harbor, the north stirring. Come. For a heartbeat, Jon Snow could not breathe. The room seemed to tilt, as if the wall itself had shifted. Sansa Stark made a small sound, not a sob, not a laugh. Something caught between. Say it, she demanded, voice tight. Say what it says. Jon Snow looked up, and his eyes were bright in a way that had nothing to do with candlelight. Rickon Stark is alive, he said. Sansa Stark's hands flew to her mouth. For a moment, all the masks fell. Relief flooded her face so fiercely it looked like pain. Then anger followed it, hot and sudden. Alive, she whispered, and the word trembled. After all this, Jon Snow's throat tightened. He thought of Winterfell, of the letter Ramsay Bolton had sent, of the lies and cruelty, of the way Jon Snow had imagined Rickon Stark dead because imagining him alive had felt like cruelty. He felt guilt like a weight. Tormund Giantsbane grunted. Good, he said simply. More wolves. Melisandre's voice slid into the room, smooth and unsettling. The Lord of Light gives and takes, she murmured. A living Stark is significant. Jon Snow ignored her. He could not afford her mysteries. He could only afford the simple truth. His brother was alive. Sansa Stark's eyes snapped to Jon Snow. We go, she said, fierce. Now. Jon Snow's mind raced. White Harbor was far. Winter roads were watched. The Boltons held Winterfell, and every day gave them more time to tighten their grip. Jon Snow had men, wildlings, Night's Watch brothers who had chosen him, a few northern stragglers. Not enough to storm a castle. But if Rickon Stark was alive, if Wyman Manderly was gathering the north, Jon Snow swallowed, forcing himself to think like a commander, not a brother. We need to move carefully, he said. If Ramsay Bolton learns. He already knows, Sansa Stark snapped. He will know everything. That's what he does. Her voice softened, just slightly, cracking. But Rickon, he's alive. We cannot leave him there like a secret. Ghost rose, silent, and pressed his head against Jon Snow's leg. The touch grounded him. Tormund Giantsbane pushed off the post. My people will follow you, he said. Not for castles. For you. Jon Snow met his gaze, grateful and uneasy at once. And the Watch? He asked, though he knew the answer. The Night's Watch was sworn to stay out of the realm's wars. But Jon Snow had already broken vows by breathing again. A brother in black lingered near the door, face hard. Some will stay, the man said. Some will go. We can't stop you. Jon Snow nodded. He expected no blessing. Sansa Stark leaned over the map table, fingers tracing the distance from Castle Black to White Harbor. We go by land, she said. Quiet. Fast. Small. Her eyes lifted to Jon Snow, steady. We cannot march an army to White Harbor, but we can bring ourselves. Jon Snow's jaw tightened. He remembered what it meant to travel small, what it meant to be hunted. He folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his coat as if it were a piece of his own heart. We leave at first light, he said. Sansa Stark nodded once, fierce agreement. Then she turned away abruptly, as if she could not trust her own face. Jon Snow watched her, then glanced toward Melisandre. Her red eyes gleamed in the firelight. Is this what you saw? Jon Snow asked, voice low. In your flames. Melisandre smiled faintly. I saw snow, she said, and I saw a wolf running. Jon Snow did not know if she meant Rickon Stark or himself. Outside, the wall groaned like an old beast in its sleep. Jon Snow stood in the cold chamber with Ghost at his feet and Sansa Stark at his side, and he felt the north shifting beneath him. Ice cracking, river moving. His brother was alive, and the world had just become sharper. Peter Baelish read the message twice before he allowed his face to change. At first, he gave nothing away. His mouth stayed relaxed, his eyes half-lidded, his posture easy in the Ares' cold stone hall. He held the Raven scroll between two fingers as if it were only another petition, another minor complaint from some bannerman who needed grain or coin. Then he read the name again. Rickon Stark. Something flickered in him, brief, sharp irritation, like a man biting down on a splinter. Peter Baelish's smile did not vanish. It simply adjusted, becoming narrower, more thoughtful. Jon Royce watched him, bronze armor catching pale light. The old lord's eyes were hard. He had never liked Peter Baelish, had never trusted the softness of his voice or the quickness of his hands. "News?" Yohn Royce asked. Peter Baelish lifted his gaze. "Smile gentle." "Hope," he said. "In the north, of all places." Robin Arryn shifted in his seat, pale and restless.
"Sansa Stark?"
he demanded, voice thin. "Is she coming back?" Peter Baelish's eyes softened as if the question amused him. "Not yet," he said, "but she writes." He did not show them the full message at first. He let them see enough to stir their interest. Jon Snow moving, Sansa Stark's urgency, the Boltons' hold tightening. He watched their faces as he spoke, measuring. "And now," Peter Baelish said, voice light, "there is a living Stark boy in White Harbor." Yohn Royce's expression shifted, surprise breaking through suspicion. "A Stark," he said. "Rickon." Peter Baelish nodded, as if sharing a pleasant rumor. Inside, his mind moved like a blade. A living Stark heir changed the board. Sansa Stark as Lady of Winterfell was one thing, useful, malleable, wounded. A boy as true heir was another. Men would rally to a male Stark as naturally as wolves to meat. They would follow him even if he could barely speak. They would follow him because they wanted the old world back. Peter Baelish had not clawed his way up from nothing to be undone by a child in furs. Robin Arryn's face pinched. "Does that mean Sansa Stark isn't?" he began. Peter Baelish's smile warmed. "Sansa Stark is still Sansa Stark," he said. "And she is still the key." He glanced down at the scroll again, tapping the name with one finger as if it were a chess piece. "But now the North has another key, and keys can open doors, or lock them." Yohn Royce's jaw tightened. "We should ride," he said, blunt as ever. "If there is a Stark to protect, we protect him. The Vale does not forget honor." Peter Baelish's smile widened, delighted. "Of course," he said, "we will ride. We will bring the Knights of the Vale, and we will look like saviors." He tilted his head. "The North will sing our names for it." Yohn Royce studied him, distrust flaring. "And what do you want for it?" he asked. Peter Baelish spread his hands. "Only peace," he lied smoothly. "Only stability. Only a realm that does not burn." Inside, he saw the truth. If the Vale rode north, it would be under his influence. If Peter Baelish arrived in White Harbor with knights and supplies, he could wedge himself into the new Stark circle like a knife between ribs. He could become necessary. And if Rickon Stark proved inconvenient, if the boy grew into someone unmanageable, there were ways to remove inconvenient pieces. Accidents happened on winter roads. Boys fell from horses. Ships sank. Peter Baelish's smile did not change as those thoughts slid through him. He had always loved ladders. He had never cared who fell beneath them. Robin Arryn's voice whined. "I don't want them to leave," he said, anxious. "I don't want you to leave." Peter Baelish turned toward him, voice soft. "I won't leave you," he soothed. "I will bring you victory." Yohn Royce looked away, jaw clenched, as if swallowing disgust. Peter Baelish folded the Raven scroll carefully and tucked it into his sleeve. He watched the Vale Knights in the back of the hall shift, eager. He watched Yohn Royce's stiff posture, the old lord's stubborn honor. Honor was useful, so was fear, so was love. Peter Baelish would bring them all north, wrapped in the story of salvation. And somewhere in White Harbor, a boy with a dire wolf at his feet would learn that wolves were not the only creatures who hunted. Secrecy in a city was like smoke in a storm, always thinning, always escaping somewhere you could not see. White Harbor was full of mouths. Merchants talked, sailors bragged, servants whispered in kitchens, and where whispers went, spies followed. It began with Shaggydog. Rickon woke in the night to the sound of the direwolf's growl, low, vibrating, wrong in the quiet of a warm chamber. His eyes snapped open. Moonlight spilled through a narrow window, pale on stone. Shaggydog stood near the door, hackles raised, lips peeled back from teeth that gleamed like knives. His gaze fixed on the crack beneath the door as if he could see through it. Osha was already moving, silent as a shadow. Rickon saw her dagger flash in moonlight. The door creaked. A figure slipped inside, small, hunched, wearing a servant's cloak, head bowed. In one hand, the figure held a tray. In the other, something that caught moonlight, glass. Shaggydog surged forward with a snarl. The figure froze, and in that instant Osha crossed the room like a strike. She slammed the intruder into the stone wall with a thud that made Rickon's bed frame rattle. The tray crashed, spilling bread and a cup that shattered, liquid spreading dark on the floor. The intruder gasped, eyes wide. He was a man, not a servant girl, and his face was too hard for humble work. His hand clenched around a small vial. Osha pressed her dagger to his throat. "Say a word," she hissed, "and the wolf eats your tongue." Rickon sat up, heart pounding, but his fear was sharp, focused. He swung his feet to the floor, moving closer, eyes fixed on the vial. "What is it?" Rickon demanded, voice rough with sleep. The man's gaze flicked to Rickon, then to Shaggydog's teeth inches away. His throat bobbed. "Nothing," he rasped. Osha's dagger bit a fraction deeper. A bead of blood welled. Shaggydog's growl rose, impatient. "Bolton," Osha whispered, and it was not a question. She smelled him the way wolves smelled fear. The man's eyes darted toward the door as if calculating distance. Osha's knee drove into his stomach, folding him. The vial slipped from his fingers and clinked on stone. Rickon snatched it up before it could roll. The glass was cold. The liquid inside was clear, almost innocent. He turned it in his hand. "Poison," he said, and he did not know how he knew. Only that he did. Osha's eyes were flat. "For a child," she murmured. "Cowards." Footsteps thundered in the corridor then, boots and clinking mail. The door flew open, and Wyman Manderly filled the frame, flanked by guards with drawn swords. His face, usually jovial, was carved into something hard. He took in the scene in a heartbeat. Spilled food, shattered cup, Osha pinning the man, Shaggydog's bared teeth, Rickon holding the vial. Wyman Manderly's eyes narrowed. "So," he said quietly, "the Boltons have begun." The spy's mouth opened, desperate. "My lord, please." Wyman Manderly's voice cut through him like a blade. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The man shook, eyes wild. "I don't." Wyman Manderly gestured. One guard stepped forward and struck the man across the face with the pommel of his sword. The spy's head snapped back, blood spraying. Rickon did not flinch. He watched, expression cold, and felt something inside him settle. Ramsay Bolton had made cruelty into a sport. Wyman Manderly made it into a tool. The spy spat blood and laughed weakly, as if trying to pretend bravery. "You're all dead," he croaked. "He'll flay this city." Wyman Manderly leaned closer, his great shadow falling over the man. "Tell Ramsay Bolton," he murmured, voice soft and lethal, "that White Harbor's walls are thicker than his skin." He straightened and looked at Rickon. "Are you harmed?" he asked, and the question was gentle enough to surprise. Rickon shook his head, still holding the vial. "He came for me," Rickon said. Wyman Manderly nodded once, grim satisfaction. "Good," he said. "Then the Boltons believe." He turned to his guards. "Take him," he ordered, quietly. "No screaming, no spectacle." His eyes glittered. "We do not give spies stories to carry." The guards hauled the spy away. The man struggled, then went limp when Shaggydog snapped at his heels, teeth missing flesh by a hair. When the corridor was quiet again, Wyman Manderly looked at the shattered cup and the spilled liquid staining stone. He stared as if seeing the stain spread beyond the floor, across the north. "They will come harder now," Osha said, wiping her dagger on the intruder's cloak with disgust. Wyman Manderly's gaze lifted to Rickon. "Let them," he said. Rickon looked down at the vial in his hand. He felt its fragile glass, the thinness of it, the way death could hide in something so small. He closed his fist around it until the glass bit into his palm. It hurt. The pain was real. It reminded him he was alive. "I want them to know," Rickon said quietly. Wyman Manderly's eyes narrowed. "Know what?" Rickon lifted his gaze, and in it was something that did not belong in a child. "That I'm not hiding," he said. "I'm waiting." Wyman Manderly's smile returned, thin and proud. "A Stark answer," he murmured. Shaggydog lowered his head and pressed it against Rickon's leg. A silent vow. Outside, the sea battered White Harbor's walls, and somewhere in the dark beyond the city, a Bolton rider would be spurring his horse north with news that the wolf cub had teeth. When the first men gathered, they did not shout. There were no horns, no banners flung into the wind, only the soft scrape of boots in snow, the clink of mail muffled under cloaks, the quiet murmur of names spoken like prayers. Rickon watched from the stable yard as dawn bled into the sky, gray and thin. The air smelled of horses and cold iron. Breath steamed from men's mouths in pale clouds. They were not an army yet, not in the way songs spoke of armies. Rows of spears glittering, banners snapping, drums pounding. They were knots of men pulled from farms and docks and halls, men with tired eyes and rough hands, men who had learned to survive by bending and now were straightening slowly. Lyanna Mormont sat astride a small horse that looked too stubborn to die. Her bearskin cloak swallowed her, but her posture was straight as a spear. She stared at Rickon with fierce approval, as if daring him to falter. Robert Glover arrived with a handful of riders, his face grim. He did not smile, but when he looked at Rickon, something in his expression softened, reluctant as thaw. Wyman Manderly watched from a balcony above, wrapped in blue furs, his cane in one hand. His gaze swept the yard, counting, measuring, memorizing every face. Pride warmed his eyes like fire behind glass. Osha tightened the girth on Rickon's saddle. Rickon sat on the horse stiffly, and used to riding after so long on foot. The animal shifted under him, restless in cold. "You'll hold?" Osha murmured, adjusting Rickon's cloak. "You'll look like a Stark, even if you feel like a starving wolf." Rickon's jaw tightened. "I feel like both," he said. Shaggydog padded through the snow beside the horse, limping less now, his shoulder healing. Men flinched when the dire wolf passed too close, then steadied themselves, embarrassed. Some smiled, quick and secret, as if the sight of a dire wolf was the first good omen they'd seen in years. The captain approached, helmet tucked under his arm. "My lord," he said to Rickon, awkward on the word, "we can move the men along the river paths. Keep off the main road. Avoid Bolton patrols." Rickon looked at him, at the way the man's eyes darted to Shaggydog, then back to Rickon with something like reverence. Rickon felt the weight of the title again, pressing. "We move quiet," Rickon said, voice low. "No fires where they can see. No songs." The captain nodded quickly, relieved to have orders. Lyanna Mormont leaned forward in her saddle. "And when we bite," she said fiercely, "we bite hard." Rickon glanced at her, then nodded once. "Hard," he agreed. Wyman Manderly's voice rolled down from the balcony. "Remember," he called, not loud but carrying, "you are not marching to die. You are marching to bring home what was stolen." His gaze fixed on the men. "The North remembers, and the North repays." A murmur rose, not a cheer but something deeper, like the ground shifting. Rickon's hands tightened on the reins. The cold air burned his lungs, and for a moment he imagined Winterfell ahead. Its walls, its yard, its kennels. He imagined Ramsay Bolton's face when he saw Stark banners approaching, not as a hostage but as a challenge. Osha leaned close, voice low. "You don't have to be brave," she whispered. "You just have to keep moving." Rickon nodded, eyes fixed forward. He did not feel brave. He felt hollow and angry and alive. The gates opened. Men began to file out, cloaks drawn up, heads down, vanishing into the gray dawn like shadows slipping away from a torch. Rickon's horse stepped forward, hooves crunching snow. Shaggydog trotted beside him, black against white. Behind them, White Harbor's towers stood silent, holding their secrets. Ahead, the North waited, frozen and watchful. as if deciding whether to crack beneath their weight or bear them all the way to Winterfell. They halted before they truly left. Wyman Manderly called Rickon back into the new castle just as the first line of men slipped out through the gates. It was a risk, delaying movement, gathering attention, but Wyman Manderly's face had that look again. The look of a man who had just been handed a new piece on the board. A raven waited on the stone ledge outside the chamber window, feathers ruffled by wind, black eyes bright. A scroll was tied to its leg with twine. Rickon stared at it, heart thudding. Ravens meant words. Words meant change. Sometimes words meant death. Maester the Omar murmured a soft sound and took the bird gently. Fingers practiced. He untied the scroll and passed it to Wyman Manderly. Wyman Manderly's thick fingers broke the seal. His eyes moved quickly over the ink, and as he read, the hardness in his face eased into something that looked almost like relief. He handed the parchment to Rickon without ceremony. Rickon took it with both hands. The writing was rougher than a maester's, more like scratches carved into wood. He read slowly, lips moving silently. Wyman Manderly.
Rickon Stark.
I am coming. Hold him safe. Hold the north if you can. If you cannot, hold long enough for me to reach you. Tell him I'm sorry. Jon Snow. Rickon stared at the last line until the ink blurred. Tell him I'm sorry. The words hit him harder than vows, harder than talk of war. They were simple, human, and they made Rickon's throat tighten so sharply he could barely swallow. Osha watched him, eyes narrowing at the way Rickon's face changed. From him? She asked softly. Rickon nodded once, unable to speak. Wyman Manderly's voice was quiet, reverent. Jon Snow will come, he said, and with him, the last pieces of House Stark will stand together. His gaze sharpened. That is the moment we have been building toward. Rickon clenched the parchment in his fist, careful not to tear it. He wanted to run. He wanted to ride south to meet Jon Snow and never let go. He wanted to be small again for one heartbeat, safe in the shadow of an older brother. But the yard outside was filling with men who had left their hearths because of Rickon's name. Rickon exhaled slowly and forced the ache down into a place where it could become strength. When? Rickon asked, voice rough. Maester the Omar cleared his throat. The raven came fast, he said. He may already be on the road. Wyman Manderly nodded. Then we move as planned, he said. We do not stop for joy. We do not stop for grief. We keep the north spine straight until Jon Snow arrives to brace it. His eyes turned colder. And we keep this from Roose Bolton as long as we can. Osha's mouth tightened. We can't keep it forever, she said. No, Wyman Manderly agreed. And we should not. He leaned on his cane and looked at Rickon. Do you understand what Jon Snow's words mean, boy? Rickon swallowed. It means I'm not alone, he said. Wyman Manderly's smile was thin and proud. It means you are not only a banner, he said. You are a family again, and families in this world. His gaze flicked toward the window where the raven's claws scratched stone. Families start wars. Rickon stared at Jon Snow's handwriting, at the blunt promise of I am coming. He felt the world tighten around that promise, felt men's lives gather behind it like a storm gathering over the sea. Shaggydog stepped closer and pressed his shoulder against Rickon's leg, steadying him. Rickon looked up at Wyman Manderly. We go, he said. Wyman Manderly nodded once. Aye, he said. We go. Rickon tucked the parchment inside his cloak, close to his chest, as if he could keep Jon Snow's promise warm there. Outside, the men were waiting. The gates were open. The snow was falling in thin, relentless sheets. Rickon Stark stepped back into the cold with Shaggydog at his side and Osha close enough to guard his shadow. He mounted his horse again, hands steady on the reins. In the distance, beyond White Harbor's walls, the north stretched out. Frozen rivers, dark forests, ruined holds, and Winterfell waiting like a wound that refused to close. Rickon drew a slow breath and tasted salt on the wind, as if the sea itself were reminding him that nothing stayed still. Not waves, not winter, not wolves, and somewhere on a road of snow and blood, Jon Snow was coming. Snow fell the way it fell in the north when the land wanted to hide itself. Fine as ash at first, then thick enough that the world became a blank page. Rickon Stark rode at the head of the column because Wyman Manderly had insisted on it, because a king who hid too long became a rumor, and rumors did not feed starving men. He hated the saddle at first. The leather was stiff, and the horse's warmth rose into his legs in a way that made him feel both powerful and exposed. But he forced himself to sit straight, chin up, eyes forward, the Stark cloak heavy across his shoulders like a borrowed skin he was learning to wear. Osha rode close enough to touch his stirrup. She kept glancing at the tree-line, counting shadows, and when she spoke it was always quiet, always sharp. Lyanna Mormont rode on Rickon's other side, bearskin wrapped tight, her small face set in stubborn fury. She did not look like someone who should command men, but men made room for her anyway, because she carried her house's defiance like a weapon. Robert Glover rode behind, grim and silent, his eyes constantly scanning the backs of the men as if expecting them to turn traitor. They moved along the White Knife's frozen bends, keeping off the hard-packed roads where hooves would leave clean tracks. Manderly scouts went ahead, slipping between reeds and snowdrifts, and when they returned they spoke in murmurs. No Bolton patrols yet, one burnt steading, a family gone south, wolves seen near the riverbank. Always the same truth. The land was wounded, but it still breathed. Rickon saw the wounds up close when they passed the first village. Smoke curled thin from one chimney, and the rest of the houses crouched dark and empty, roofs sagging under snow. A woman stood in the doorway of the only lit home, her face wind-chapped, a baby bundled against her chest. She watched the column pass with the blank stare of someone who had learned not to hope. A boy about Rickon's age stepped out from behind her, thin and wary. His eyes went to Shaggydog first, wide with fear and awe. Then he looked at Rickon's cloak, the dire wolf clasp at his throat, and something in his posture changed. He did not bow. He could not have known how. But his shoulders lifted as if remembering how to stand. Rickon met his gaze and held it. He did not smile. Smiles felt too fragile. Instead, he raised his hand in a small, stiff gesture, half greeting, half promise. The boy swallowed, then lifted his own hand in answer, a mirror movement, awkward and earnest. They did not stop. Stopping meant fires, and fires meant eyes. But the look on that boy's face followed Rickon like a shadow long after the village vanished behind drifting snow. At night, they camped in hollows, under pines thick enough to catch most of the falling snow. Men ate cold bread and dried fish in silence, chewing slowly to make the food last. When the wind grew too sharp, they huddled close, backs pressed together like soldiers in a shield wall, breath turning to frost on beards. Rickon sat with Osha and Lyanna Mormont beside a shallow pit covered with a board, hiding the faint glow of coals. Shaggydog lay at Rickon's feet, head on paws, eyes half-lidded but listening. The direwolf's presence made the men nearby uneasy, yet also steadied them. A wolf meant Starks, and Starks meant the old days when men could trust the name on a banner. A captain approached, lowering himself into a crouch rather than standing over Rickon. "My lord," he murmured. Scouts saw riders at a distance, not close but watching. Osha's hand drifted toward her dagger. Lyanna Mormont's face hardened. "Boltons," she whispered. "Maybe," the captain said, "maybe just hunters." Rickon stared into the hidden coals. His chest felt tight, the old kennel memory rising. Torches, laughter, hounds straining on leashes. He forced himself to breathe slowly. "If they're watching," he said, voice low, "let them watch." The captain blinked, surprised. Rickon lifted his gaze, and for a heartbeat he saw his reflection in the man's eyes. Small, scarred, too young. He hated that reflection. He crushed it. "They will carry word back," Rickon said. "They will tell Ramsay Bolton the north is moving. That is good. I want him afraid." Osha's mouth tightened. "Fear makes men bite," she warned. Rickon nodded. "Then we bite first," he said. Lyanna Mormont's grin flashed quick and feral. "That's a king's answer," she murmured. Rickon did not feel like a king. He felt like a boy in a wolfskin cloak, trying not to shiver. But when he looked beyond the pines to the black sweep of the forest, he imagined Winterfell's walls, imagined the yard where he had been leashed, imagined Ramsay Bolton's smile. The thought warmed him more than the coals ever could. Somewhere out there, riders watched. Let them. Wolves moved best when prey believed it understood the hunt. The first blood they spilled as a host was not spilled in a glorious charge. It was spilled in a ditch. 2 days after the village, a Manderly scout returned with snow crusted on his lashes and fear tight in his voice. "Bolton men," he whispered. "Small party. 5 riders. They're following the river bends, keeping distance. They know we're here." Robert Glover's jaw clenched. "Ramsay Bolton's eyes," he muttered. Osha spat into snow. "Then we pull the eyes out," she said. They found the ditch at midday, a shallow cut where meltwater had once run in warmer years, now frozen and half-buried. Pines leaned over it, branches heavy. Rickon's horse snorted, uneasy, and Shaggydog's ears pinned back. Lyanna Mormont leaned close, voice fierce. "You shouldn't be here," she said to Rickon, and for once there was something like worry beneath her anger. Rickon's jaw set. "If I hide," he said, "they say I'm a rumor. If I run, they say I'm prey." He looked at the men crouched in the snow, bows ready, spears angled, breath steaming. "I'm here." Osha studied him a heartbeat, then nodded once. "Then don't flinch," she said. "Not when they scream." They waited, still as stone. The world was silent except for the distant creak of trees and the soft hiss of snow falling. Rickon's fingers ached from gripping the reins. His breath fogged the air in front of his face, and he forced himself to breathe through his nose, slow and controlled. The riders came like black marks on white. 5 men in dark cloaks, horses steaming, heads bowed against wind. Their spear points were wrapped in cloth to dull shine. They moved cautiously, but not cautiously enough. They believed the forest belonged to them because they had been riding it for weeks. When the first horse drew level with the ditch, the arrow took its rider in the throat. The man toppled backwards, hands clawing at nothing, and hit the snow with a muffled thud. His horse screamed, reared, and stumbled toward the ditch. "Now," Robert Glover hissed. Arrows hissed. Another rider fell, then another. The remaining 2 wheeled, spurring their horses, trying to break back the way they had come. Shaggydog surged forward with a growl that vibrated through the air like thunder. The direwolf struck the nearest horse's flank, teeth sinking into flesh. The horse screamed, stumbled, and its rider lost his balance. He hit the ground hard, spear flying from his hand. Rickon's horse lurched forward, and for a heartbeat Rickon saw the fallen rider's face. Young, terrified, cheeks red with cold. Bolton colors did not make him older. He was just a man. The rider scrambled, reaching for his dagger. His eyes found Rickon's cloak, the direwolf clasp. Fear widened them. "Please," he gasped, and the word came out before he could swallow it. Rickon's chest tightened. He remembered begging once, in the kennels, not with words but with silence. He remembered Ramsay Bolton's laughter. Osha's dagger flashed at Rickon's side. "No," she said, flat. She stepped toward the rider. Rickon's hand shot out, catching her wrist. His grip was smaller than hers, but sudden enough to stop her a heartbeat. Osha's eyes snapped to him, furious. Rickon stared down at the rider. The man's mouth trembled. Blood from his horse spattered his boots. "Who sent you?" Rickon demanded. The rider's gaze flicked to Osha's blade, then back to Rickon. "Winterfell," he choked. "Ramsay Bolton." He said bring him the boy if we could. Or bring proof if we couldn't. "Proof?" Lyanna Mormont spat, appearing beside Rickon. "What, your head on a pike?" The rider swallowed, tears freezing at the corners of his eyes. He'll flay my family," he whispered. Rickon's grip tightened on Osha's wrist until his fingers hurt. He felt the pull of 2 worlds, mercy and vengeance, childhood and war. He wanted to be the sort of Stark his father had been, the sort who punished but did not revel. He also wanted Ramsay Bolton to choke on fear. Robert Glover stepped closer, voice cold. "They all say family," he said. "Boltons threaten families because families are all the North has left." Rickon looked at the rider's trembling mouth and felt the old pain rise. Beth Castle's scream, Winterfell's godswood, the way Ramsay Bolton had used people like kindling. He released Osha's wrist slowly. "Bind him," Rickon said. Osha's eyes narrowed. And then, Rickon's voice came out rough, but steady. "He goes back," Rickon said, "with a message." The men around them stilled, surprised. Rickon leaned down toward the rider, close enough that the man could smell him. Salt fish and wool, not kennel filth anymore. "Tell Ramsay Bolton," Rickon whispered, "that I remember his yard. Tell him I remember the chain. Tell him the North is coming, and his dogs will not save him." The rider's eyes widened, and something like dread cut through his fear. He nodded frantically. They sent him away on foot, hands bound, cloak torn, stumbling through snow toward the south with a wolf's words in his ears. Osha watched him go with a hard face. "That was mercy," she said quietly, as if tasting the word. Rickon stared after the rider until the man vanished into white. "No," Rickon said. "It was bait." Osha's mouth curved, thin and fierce. "Now you're learning," she murmured. Behind them, the ditch held dead men and a dying horse. Blood darkened the snow like spilled ink, and the North's blank page began to fill. Roose Bolton read Wyman Manderly's letter by firelight, his pale eyes moving over the ink with the same calm he used when watching men die. The words were obedient. The seal was true. The offer of salt fish and ship nails and prayers for peace was thick enough to choke on. Across the hall, Ramsay Bolton paced like a caged hound. Winterfell's great hall was full of smoke and cold. Flayed skins hung from beams, shifting slightly in drafts. Men spoke in low voices, careful. Theon Greyjoy knelt by the wall, head bowed, chains clinking when he moved. He had learned that looking up was an invitation to pain. Roose Bolton folded the letter once, precisely, and set it on the table. "He plays the loyal lord," Roose Bolton murmured. Ramsay Bolton's grin was sharp. "He always has," he said. "Fat Wyman Manderly loves living. He'll kneel to whoever keeps his belly full." Roose Bolton glanced at him, expression unreadable. "Or he loves revenge," Roose Bolton said quietly. Ramsay Bolton's smile faltered a fraction, then returned wider. "Revenge for what?" he asked, voice light. "For the Red Wedding? That was fry work, wasn't it? For a Stark boy who ran from my yard." His laugh was soft and ugly. "He should thank me for keeping the cub alive as long as I did." Roose Bolton's gaze slid to the hearth. Flames licked logs, steady. "Keeping him alive made him valuable," he said. "Losing him makes him dangerous." Ramsay Bolton's eyes brightened at the word dangerous. "Good," he murmured. "Danger is fun." Roose Bolton's face did not change. "Fun is not the point," he said. Ramsay Bolton stopped pacing. He leaned forward, hands on the table, face close to his father's. "You want him back," Ramsay Bolton said, voice soft. "You want the Stark cub on a chain again." Roose Bolton's eyes met his, cold and flat. "I want Winterfell to remain ours," he said. "I want the North to remain quiet. If Wyman Manderly is stirring, we cut the stirring out." Ramsay Bolton's fingers flexed, eager. "Let me ride," he said. "Let me take the hounds. Let me drag the boy out of the woods and bring him back in pieces. Let me." "No," Roose Bolton said, and the single word cracked like ice. Ramsay Bolton's smile sharpened. "No?" he echoed as if tasting insult. Roose Bolton picked up another parchment, reports from riders, names of houses, rumors. "You will not take half the garrison chasing ghosts," he said. "You will not leave Winterfell when the North is uncertain." His eyes lifted. "You will stay where I can see you." A flicker of fury crossed Ramsay Bolton's face. It was quick, but it was there. "You think I'm the danger," he said softly. Roose Bolton's silence was answer enough. Ramsay Bolton's gaze slid, hungry, to Theon Greyjoy by the wall. "He helped them," Ramsay Bolton said suddenly, voice bright. "He knows the crypts. He knows the old doors. He crawled out like a rat and led them." Theon Greyjoy flinched, though he kept his head bowed. Roose Bolton's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Did he?" he asked. Ramsay Bolton shrugged. "He will," he said lightly, "whether he did or not." He stepped toward Theon Greyjoy, boots crunching on frost. He grabbed Theon's hair and yanked his head up. Theon's eyes were wide, bloodshot, empty. "Reek," Ramsay Bolton murmured, almost gentle. "Tell my father where the wolf went." Theon's mouth trembled. "I don't," he rasped. "I don't know." Ramsay Bolton's grip tightened until Theon whimpered. "Liar," Ramsay Bolton whispered. Roose Bolton watched still. "Enough," he said at last, not loud but cutting. Ramsay Bolton released Theon, letting him slump. He turned back to the table, smile returning. "We send demands," Ramsay Bolton said. "Hostages. Heads. We squeeze. The North always breaks when you squeeze hard enough." Roose Bolton nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "We squeeze." He reached for quill and ink. "We send ravens to White Harbor. We demand Wyman Manderly's granddaughters come to Winterfell as proof of loyalty. We demand grain and men. We demand he bend so low his forehead bleeds." Ramsay Bolton's eyes gleamed. "And when he refuses," he murmured. Roose Bolton's gaze was cold. "Then we know," he said. Ramsay Bolton's smile widened, teeth showing. "And then I ride," he said. Roose Bolton did not answer. He did not need to. The room's silence filled with the crackle of fire and the distant howl of wind beyond the walls. Somewhere in the Wolfswood, a rider would be carrying a message back to Winterfell. A message Rickon Stark had spoken with a boy's mouth and a wolf's heart. Ramsay Bolton would hear it, and he would grin, because the hunt at last was worthy. White Harbor mourned loudly. Wyman Manderly ordered the bells rung at midday, their deep tolling rolling over roofs and docks and frozen streets. Men emerged from taverns and warehouses to listen, faces puzzled. Women crossed themselves in sept fashion, though many in the north did not bother with southern gods. Children stopped throwing snowballs and stared up at the gray sky as if expecting ravens to rain down. A procession wound through the city behind an empty coffin draped in stark gray. The coffin was carried by 6 Manderly men with stiff faces. Behind them, Wyman Manderly waddled in heavy furs, cheeks flushed, eyes wet. He wept openly, loudly, as if grief had split him in half. His sobs echoed off stone walls and made even hard sailors shift uncomfortably. Rickon Stark watched from behind a narrow shutter in an upper room of the new castle. Osha stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, her touch a steady anchor. Shaggydog paced behind them, restless, the wolf sensing the falseness in the air. "They're burying you," Osha murmured, voice flat. Rickon's fingers curled against the shutter wood. He watched the coffin pass, watched men bow their heads, watched a woman press her hand to her mouth as if truly grieving. He felt something strange. Not fear, not anger, but a cold, distant awareness. In Ramsay Bolton's yard, he had been treated like an object. Here, even his death was a tool. Wyman Manderly's sobbing voice carried faintly up to the window. "My sweet boy," he wailed, theatrical as a mummer. "The last wolf, taken by beasts in the woods. Cursed be this winter. Cursed be those who force children to flee." Rickon could almost admire the performance. Wyman Manderly sounded like a man whose heart had been ripped out. Anyone listening, any spy hiding among the crowd, would hear only grief. And there were spies. Rickon saw one man in the crowd who did not bow his head. He stood too still, eyes scanning faces rather than the coffin, as if memorizing. Rickon's gaze locked on him for a heartbeat. The man glanced up. For a moment, Rickon thought he had been seen. Then the man looked away, dismissing the window as empty. Rickon exhaled slowly, breath fogging the shutter. He imagined Ramsay Bolton receiving word that Rickon Stark was dead. Imagine the smile that would spread across Ramsay Bolton's face. Imagine the disappointment that would follow when that smile proved premature. The procession ended at the Sept because White Harbor had septs, and the Septons knew how to make grief look convincing. Wyman Manderly knelt before the altar and prayed loudly, his voice thick with tears. The Septon's hands shook as he spoke blessings over the empty coffin. Below, in the castle's lower halls, Wyman Manderly's true work continued. Men moved in silence, loading supplies into wagons under cover of the mourning. Salt fish, flour, bolts of cloth, bundles of arrows. Soldiers slipped out of side gates in small knots, cloaks drawn up, melting into the city's shadows. A funeral made a fine cover for an army's departure. When the bells stopped, the city sighed and returned to its struggle for survival. But the lie remained hanging in the air like smoke. That night, Wyman Manderly hosted a feast for those who had come to pay respects. The feast hall was full of roasted fish and steaming bread, the smell so rich it made men's mouths water. Wyman Manderly sat at the high table and drank heavily, laughing too loudly between bouts of grief. He spoke of loyalty. He spoke of peace. He spoke of the cruelty of wolves and winter. Spies listened. Wyman Manderly made sure they heard him speak the most important lie of all. Roose Bolton keeps the North safe, he declared, raising a cup. And Ramsay Bolton, may the gods bless him for his mercy, kept the boy alive as long as he could. A murmur ran through the hall, uneasy. Some faces tightened. Some men looked down into their cups. But no one challenged him. Not openly. Not with knives so near. From his hidden chamber, Rickon listened to the muffled roar of the feast like distant surf. Osha sat near the door, sharpening her dagger with slow strokes. Shaggydog lay with his head on his paws, eyes open. Rickon stared into the dark and imagined the coffin in the sept, empty and quiet. He imagined the city believing him dead. He imagined the North's lords hearing the rumor and letting grief settle like frost. Then he imagined that frost cracking when he walked out into daylight again. Some men became kings by winning battles. Some became kings by dying in stories. Rickon Stark was learning that sometimes the first step toward ruling was letting the world bury you, so you could rise when they least expected it. Jon Snow left Castle Black with the cold at his back and a knot of dread in his chest. The wall loomed behind him like a white cliff, vast and indifferent, and for the first time in his life he felt no comfort in its certainty. The wall had always been a boundary. Duty on one side, the realm on the other. Now duty and realm had tangled together until he could not tell where one ended. Sansa Stark rode beside him, wrapped in furs that hid the thinness of her frame. Her face was set, eyes forward, jaw tight. She did not speak much in the first miles. When she did, her words were sharp and practical. Where to find shelter, which villages might still offer bread, which roads to avoid. Tormund Giantsbane led a handful of free folk behind them, big as an aurochs and twice as loud when he forgot to be quiet. He tried, for Jon Snow's sake. He spoke in grunts and gestures, his usual laughter swallowed by wind. Ghost moved silently at Jon Snow's heel, a pale shadow in snow, eyes bright. Brienne of Tarth rode further back with Podrick Payne, her posture straight despite cold. She watched Sansa Stark the way a shield watched a sword. Always ready, always tense. They kept the party small. Too many men drew attention. Too many men left tracks that could be read like a book. Jon Snow chose the hardest paths because hard paths were less watched. They moved through the gift where abandoned holdfasts crouched under snow like bones. They passed burnt farms where blackened posts jutted from drifts. They passed frozen corpses half buried, faces turned toward the sky as if still asking why. Sansa Stark did not look away. Her eyes hardened with each ruin, as if she were forging herself into something that could not bend again. On the third night, they sheltered beneath the broken eaves of an old watchtower. Its stones cracked, its roof half collapsed. The wind howled through gaps, and their small fire was hidden behind fallen masonry, its light kept low. Jon Snow sat with his back to stone, the letter from Wyman Manderly tucked inside his coat. He took it out and unfolded it again, tracing the inked words with his eyes as if staring could make them more true. Sansa Stark watched him across the fire. "You've read it a dozen times," she said. Jon Snow swallowed. "It's still hard to believe," he admitted.
Sansa Stark's mouth twisted.
"Hard?" she echoed, bitterness cutting through. "I watched Ramsay Bolton loose hounds on girls for sport. I watched him skin men. I watched him smile when he hurt people. Of course it's hard." Her voice cracked, and she swallowed, forcing it down. Rickon was a child. He didn't know how to lie, how to hide. He was always loud, always running. She stared into the fire, and for a moment Jon Snow saw the little girl she had been, the one who had wanted songs and princes. "He should be dead," she whispered. "He should have died. That would have been kinder than letting him live under Ramsay Bolton." Jon Snow flinched at the honesty. He understood the shape of her pain. He had lived with it since he read Ramsay Bolton's letter, since he imagined Rickon Stark's body on a spear. "He lived anyway," Jon Snow said quietly. Sansa Stark's eyes lifted, shining in firelight. "Then we take him back," she said. "We take him back and we never let them touch him again." Tormund Giantsbane snorted softly. "Touch him and I'll tear their heads off," he muttered, as if discussing weather. Brienne of Tartha's gaze remained on Sansa Stark. "You will not be alone," she said, voice steady. "Not again." Sansa Stark's jaw tightened, and she nodded once. It was not gratitude, it was acceptance. Later, when the others slept in uneasy knots, Jon Snow remained awake, listening to wind and ghosts' slow breath. He thought of Rickon Stark in White Harbor, thought of the boy's bruised wrists and stubborn eyes. He thought of Robb Stark's laugh, of Bran Stark's curiosity, of Arya Stark's wildness. He thought of Ned Stark's quiet honor and wondered what Ned Stark would have done. He knew the answer. Ned Stark would have ridden into the storm for a child. Jon Snow stared into the dying coals and felt the old weight of being a bastard, of being outside, of never quite belonging. Rickon Stark's existence shifted that weight. If Rickon lived, Jon Snow was not the last wolf standing in a world that had tried to kill them all. In the black hours before dawn, Jon Snow finally slept, his hands still resting on the folded letter as if it were a sword hilt. When the light returned, thin, gray, reluctant, they rose and rode again, leaving the watchtower behind like a shed skin. The north stretched ahead, cold and broken, but somewhere in that cold was a living brother. Jon Snow rode faster, and the wind at his back felt almost like hope. The Vale's knights made a sound like distant thunder when they rode. Even before they moved, the stables were full of clinking mail and stamping hooves, and the air smelled of sweat and leather and oiled steel. Men sharpened swords with grim smiles, eager for war as if war were a feast. Peter Baelish fed that hunger carefully. He stood on the Ares balcony with the mountains falling away beneath him, white peaks like teeth, and watched the knights gather in the lower courtyard. His hands rested on the stone rail, fingers tapping a slow rhythm. Behind him, Jon Royce approached, boots heavy, bronze armor gleaming. "You have them riled," Jon Royce said, voice tight. "They think they ride north to save a Stark." Peter Baelish smiled without turning. "They do," he said. "In their minds, that is all that matters." Jon Royce stepped beside him and looked down at the courtyard. "And in yours?" he demanded. Peter Baelish's smile widened, pleasant. "In mine," he said. "They ride north to secure peace." Jon Royce snorted. "You speak of peace the way a butcher speaks of mercy." Peter Baelish's eyes flicked to him, mild amusement. "Mercy," he echoed. "Is that what you think the North wants?" "Mercy?" He let the question hang like bait. "They want justice, my lord, or what they call justice." Jon Royce's jaw clenched. "And you will give it to them?" "I will give them what they will accept," Peter Baelish said softly. "And when they accept it, they will owe the Vale." He leaned closer to the rail, gaze distant. In his mind, The North was not a land of snow and pine. It was a map of appetites. Men wanted safety. Men wanted revenge. Men wanted old names back because old names made them feel less afraid. Rickon Stark's name was a feast for the starving. Peter Baelish intended to be the hand that served it. A page approached with a raven scroll. Peter Baelish took it and read quickly. News of Wyman Manderly's funeral. News that the Stark boy was dead. News that mourners filled White Harbor streets. Peter Baelish's smile did not change, but his eyes narrowed a fraction. Clever. Fat Wyman Manderly was cleverer than Peter Baelish had given him credit for. He folded the scroll and tucked it away. "We ride," he said lightly, as if the decision were simple. Yohn Royce stared at him. "For a boy who is dead?" he asked. Peter Baelish's smile turned indulgent, almost kind. "Boys die," he said. "Stories live." He glanced toward the courtyard again. "The Vale cannot arrive too late. We arrive at the moment grief becomes anger. We arrive when the North needs a sword arm to swing." Yohn Royce's eyes narrowed. "And Sansa Stark?" he asked, suspicion thick. Peter Baelish's gaze softened, and for a heartbeat his voice almost sounded sincere. "Sansa Stark is the North's heart," he said. "She has suffered. She has survived. Men will look at her and see the pain they carry." His smile sharpened. "And hearts can be guided." Yohn Royce's hand clenched on the balcony rail. "You will not use her," he said, voice low. It was not a request. Peter Baelish turned his head, meeting Yohn Royce's gaze with gentle patience. "We all use what we have," he said. "You use honor. I use truth." His smile widened. "Different tools. Same goal." Yohn Royce's expression twisted. "You wouldn't know truth if it cut you." Peter Baelish laughed softly. "Truth cuts everyone," he murmured. "That is why I prefer knives I can hold." Below, the knights began to mount. Banners were unfurled. Arryn falcons, Royce runes, smaller sigils fluttering. The sound rose, a low roar of readiness. Peter Baelish watched it all with calm satisfaction. War was a ladder, and ladders required rungs. A living Stark boy was a rung. A dead Stark boy was also a rung. It was the same climb either way, as long as Peter Baelish placed his feet carefully. He turned from the balcony and walked back into the Ares chill halls, already composing the words he would say in White Harbor when he arrived. Words of sympathy, of alliance, of shared grief. Words that would make northern men nod and Vale men cheer. And behind those words, a quieter plan unfurled like a blade. If Rickon Stark truly lived, Peter Baelish would kneel first, smile, and offer protection. If Rickon Stark truly died, Peter Baelish would comfort Sansa Stark and crown her with northern longing. Either way, the North would open its gates to him. Either way, Peter Baelish would climb. By the time Rickon Stark's host reached the edge of the Hornwood, the men had stopped looking like scattered knots and started looking like something that could bite. More riders had joined them in dribs and drabs. Small parties slipping out from ruined holdfasts, hunters with bows, desperate men with axes, a handful of older soldiers whose mail was patched and dented but worn with pride. They came because of whispers. They came because they had heard a Stark lived. They came because they were tired of kneeling to flayed skins. The Hornwood lands were scarred. Trees had been cut down for winter fuel until the forest looked thin and wounded. A burnt manor crouched on a hill, its stone chimney standing alone like a black finger pointing at the sky. Ravens perched there, fat and unafraid. Robert Glover's scouts brought news. Bolton men took grain from the Hornwood stores, one said. Left nothing, took 2 boys too. Said it was for hostages. Rickon's stomach tightened. "Where?" he demanded. The scout pointed toward the east, toward the road that ran like a dark line through snow. "They're heading back toward Winterfell," he said. "Small group, 10, maybe 12. They move quick." Lina Mormont's face hardened. "We take them," she said, as if it were the only possible answer. Robert Glover hesitated. "Chasing every small party," he began. Osha's gaze cut to him. "Those boys aren't small," she said quietly. Rickon stared at the black line of the road in the distance. Every part of him wanted to chase, to strike, to prove the North was not helpless. But he also felt the weight of the host behind him. Men who had left hearths to follow him. Men who would die if he spent them badly. He forced himself to breathe. "We don't chase with all," he said. "We send claws." Robert Glover's eyes narrowed. "Claws?" Rickon pointed at Harlan Snow, who had ridden with them since the Wolfswood. The bastard hunter looked up, surprised. "You know woods," Rickon said. "You take men who move quiet. You take them off the road. You bring the boys back." Harlan Snow's mouth tightened, grim. He said. "I can." Lyanna Mormont leaned forward. "And I go," she said, not asking. Robert Glover opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at Rickon, at the way the boy's face held stubborn certainty, and something in him softened. "Then take my riders too," he said. "Men you can trust." Osha shifted in her saddle, eyes hard. "I go," she said. Rickon's chest tightened at the thought of losing her. Osha was not just his guard. She was the one who had dragged him from Winterfell's jaws. Without her, he would have been a corpse in snow. "No," Rickon said sharply. Osha's gaze snapped to him, fierce. "You don't order me," she snapped back. "I do," Rickon said, voice low. He hated the command even as he used it. "Because I need you alive. Because I need you with me." Osha stared at him for a long moment, anger and something softer warring in her eyes. Then she spat into the snow. "Fine," she muttered. "But if those boys die, I'll haunt you." Harlan Snow grinned without humor. "They won't," he said. They moved at dusk, the small party slipping away like shadows. Rickon watched them vanish between trees. Lyanna Mormont's bearskin cloak a dark shape in the falling snow. The host remained hidden in a hollow. Men crouched around cold food, waiting. Hours crawled. The sky darkened. Wind rose. Rickon paced, restless, Shaggydog following close. The direwolf's limp had faded, but the scar remained, a reminder of how close death always was. Rickon's mind filled with images he could not stop. Boys in chains, boys dragged screaming, boys flayed for sport. He clenched his fists until his nails bit skin. Near midnight, movement in the trees. Harlan Snow returned first, breath steaming, face streaked with blood that might not be his. Behind him came Lyanna Mormont, jaw tight, eyes bright. Two boys stumbled between them, hands bound but alive, cheeks red with cold, eyes wide with shock. Rickon surged forward. The older boy stared at him, confusion on his face, then recognition as he saw the direwolf clasp. His knees buckled, and he sobbed in relief. Rickon's throat tightened. He reached out and untied the boy's wrists himself, fingers fumbling with frozen knots. "You're safe," Rickon said, voice rough. "You're safe." The younger boy stared at Rickon as if staring at a legend. "Are you?" he whispered. "Are you the wolf?" Rickon swallowed. "I'm Rickon Stark," he said. The boy's eyes filled with tears. He dropped to his knees in the snow. "My father said Starks were gone," he whispered. "He said we were alone." Rickon looked at the host around them. Men watching in silence, faces softened. He looked down at the kneeling boy and felt something settle in his chest, heavy and fierce. "You're not alone," Rickon said. Behind him, Harlan Snow wiped his knife clean on a Bolton cloak. "We left a message," he said quietly. Rickon's eyes lifted. "What message?" he asked. Lyanna Mormont's grin flashed, feral in moonlight. "We left them hanging from a tree," she said, "with flayed men's banners burning beneath." Her voice hardened. "Let the Boltons taste their own fear." Robert Glover exhaled slowly, and for once his grim face held something like satisfaction. Rickon stared into the dark trees where Bolton men now lay dead. He did not rejoice. He did not feel clean, but he felt the north shift again, like ice thickening underfoot. In the Hornwood's scarred lands, under falling snow, Rickon Stark watched two freed boys cling to each other and understood the shape of his power. It was not in swords alone. It was in the moment a child learned he was not forgotten. The ambush came at dawn, when the world was still gray and men's limbs moved stiffly from cold sleep. It came not as a roar, but as a hiss, arrows cutting the air, striking flesh, turning breath into screams. Rickon Stark's host had begun to move again, threading between stands of pine, keeping away from roads. They traveled through a shallow ravine where the snow lay wind-packed and hard, the sides steep enough to block most of the wind. It should have been safe. It should have been a hidden path. Ramsay Bolton's men had learned how to read hidden paths. The first arrow took a Manderly scout in the throat. He fell without a sound, blood steaming on snow. The second struck a horse's flank, and the animal screamed, rearing, throwing its rider into the ravine wall with a crack that made men wince. "Shields!" Robert Glover bellowed. Men surged, raising round shields, huddling close. Chaos erupted in the narrow space. Horses panicking, men shouting, snow kicked into the air. Rickon's horse bucked beneath him, eyes rolling. Rickon clenched the reins, teeth grinding, trying not to fall. Osha was on him instantly, grabbing the horse's bridle and forcing it steady, her voice a low, fierce hiss. "Down!" she snapped. "Get down now!" Rickon slid from the saddle into the snow. The cold hit him like a slap. Shaggydog surged to his side, snarling toward the ravine's edge where shadows moved between trees. Bolton men appeared above them, silhouettes against gray sky, bows drawn, spears ready. Their leader wore a black helm with a flayed man painted on the brow. His voice rang down, sharp. "Drop your weapons," he shouted. "Give up the wolf and you live." Laughter rose, harsh, from some Bolton throats. They believed they had trapped prey in a pit. Lina Mormont's voice cut through the chaos, small and furious. "Come down and take him," she shouted back. Arrows rained again. A man beside Rickon screamed, clutching his arm where an arrow had lodged. Another fell, face first, blood-staining snow. Rickon's chest tightened. Fear surged, hot and choking, the old kennel fear. Trapped, watched, laughed at. For a heartbeat, he felt small again. Then he heard Shaggydog's growl, deep and steady, and the fear shifted into something else. "Archers!" Robert Glover roared. "Return fire!" Northern bows rose. Arrows flew upward, striking tree trunks, striking men. One Bolton toppled, arms flailing, disappearing from the ravine edge with a scream that ended in a wet thud. Osha grabbed Rickon's shoulders and shoved him toward a cluster of boulders where the ravine widened. "Stay low," she hissed. "If they see your head, they'll pin it like a rabbit." Rickon ducked behind stone, breath ragged. He could hear men dying. He could hear the sickening sound of arrows striking meat. He could hear horses screaming. He clenched his fists, mind racing. They were trapped unless they climbed, and climbing meant exposing themselves. If they tried to push forward, the ravine would become a slaughter lane. Ramsay Bolton's men would have planned this. They would have expected panic. Rickon forced himself to look at the ravine's shape. The left side was steeper, lined with thin trees that might hold a climbing man. The right side was jagged rock, harder to scale but offering more cover. Bolton men were concentrated above the center, fewer on the right where the rock face looked unforgiving. "Osha!" Rickon gasped. Osha crouched beside him, eyes wild but focused. "What?" she snapped. Rickon pointed at the rock face. "There," he whispered. "We climb there. Small group. We take the edge. We kill their archers." Osha stared at him, surprised. Then her mouth tightened into something like pride. She murmured. "Good." She signaled to Robert Glover with a sharp gesture. Robert's eyes flicked to Rickon, then to the rock face. He nodded once, grim understanding.
10 men, Robert Glover barked.
"Climb the right. Take the bows." Men moved, chosen quickly, those with strong hands, those with knives. Lina Mormont shoved her way into the group despite protests, her small frame making her easier to climb. She flashed Rickon a feral grin. "Watch," she mouthed. They began to climb, fingers scrabbling for holds, boots slipping on frost. Bolton arrows hissed, but the rock gave cover, forcing archers to lean out for shots. A man near Lyanna Mormont took an arrow in the shoulder and grunted, but kept climbing, teeth clenched. Rickon crouched behind stone and watched, breath held. Shaggydog paced, snarling, ready to leap. Osha kept one hand on Rickon's cloak as if anchoring him. At the top, Lyanna Mormont's head appeared first, dark hair whipped by wind. She rolled over the edge like a savage, knife in hand, and plunged it into the ankle of the nearest Bolton archer. The man screamed and fell, bow clattering. Then the northern climbers surged up, and the fight turned savage and close. Knives flashed. Men grappled in snow. Blood sprayed against white, dark and shocking. Below, Robert Glover seized the moment. "Push!" he roared. The host surged forward through the ravine, shields up, using the archers' distraction. They slammed into Bolton men who had been waiting to spear them at the choke point.
Steel ran.
Spears thrust. Men shouted. Rickon stayed low, but he could not stay out of it. A Bolton soldier lunged down the slope, sword raised, eyes wild. He saw Rickon's cloak and grinned, teeth bared. "There!" he shouted.
There!
Shaggydog hit him. The dire wolf slammed into the man's chest, knocking him backward. Teeth closed on the man's throat. The Bolton's shout turned into a gurgle. Blood spattered Shaggydog's muzzle. The wolf shook once, vicious, and the body went limp. Rickon stared, heart hammering. The sight did not turn his stomach anymore. It should have. Didn't. The world had already shown him worse. Osha grabbed Rickon's arm. "Move!" she hissed, dragging him forward through the chaos. They broke out of the Ravi. As the Bolton line crumbled, the archers above now dead or fleeing. Snow fell thicker, hiding bodies quickly, as if the land itself wanted to cover the cost. When the fight ended, it ended suddenly, like a snapped rope. Bolton survivors vanished into trees, leaving behind dead men, broken bows, and trampled blood-stained snow. Robert Glover stood panting, sword red. Lyanna Mormont wiped her knife on a Bolton cloak, face smeared with blood that was not hers, eyes bright. Men counted losses. Quiet sobs broke from somewhere. A wounded horse lay on its side, breath steaming in ragged bursts. Rickon stood among it all, cloak heavy, hands shaking slightly. Osha watched him, expression hard. "You ordered that," she said quietly. "The climb, the push." Rickon swallowed. "They would have killed us," he said, voice rough. Osha nodded once. "I," she said, "and you stopped it." Rickon looked down at the snow, at the dark stains already being covered by new flakes. He had wanted to make Ramsay Bolton afraid. He had wanted to bite first. Now he understood what biting cost. He lifted his gaze toward the south, toward Winterfell's unseen walls. "He's going to come," Rickon said, more to himself than to anyone. Lyanna Mormont's grin was cold. "Let him," she said. "We'll be ready." Rickon did not answer. He only listened to the wind and the dying horse's breath and the distant caw of ravens circling, patient. War had found him again. This time he did not run. White Harbor's gates did not open for strangers in winter. They opened for trusted faces, for Manderly men, for fish wagons and grain carts. When Jon Snow's party reached the outskirts, they found the roads watched, not by Bolton soldiers, but by men in blue cloaks who moved with the quiet confidence of those who knew their lord's orders. A rider approached from the tree-lean, hood up, face half hidden by fur. He raised a hand, palm out, not threatening but firm. Jon Snow slowed his horse. Ghost moved ahead, silent, and the Manderly rider's horse snorted nervously at the sight of the direwolf. "Name yourself," the rider called. "Jon Snow," Jon Snow replied, voice carrying. He let the name hang. In the north, names were currency. The rider hesitated, then nodded once. "Davos Seaworth said you'd come," he said. "Follow. Quiet." Sansa Stark's eyes narrowed. "Davos?" she whispered. Jon Snow's chest tightened. Davos Seaworth had said he would go. The fact that he was here ahead of them meant he had pushed through storm and sea and snow with the same stubbornness that had kept him alive all his life. They followed the rider along a hidden track that skirted the city's outer defenses. Snow muffled hoofbeats. The smell of the sea grew stronger with each step, sharp and cold. White Harbor's towers loomed ahead, their stone faces slick with frost. Inside a small gate, they were ushered through narrow alleys and warehouse shadows, out of sight of main streets. Men watched from doorways with guarded eyes, hands near knives. The city felt like a clenched fist. They reached the new castle by dusk. Torches burned low. Guards at the doors looked them over, wary, then stepped aside with stiff bows. The air inside was warmer, thick with the smell of food and smoke. Davos Seaworth waited in a side hall, cloak damp, beard frosted at the edges. He looked older than Jon Snow remembered from their last meeting, as if the sea had carved more lines into his face in a handful of days. But his eyes were steady. When he saw Jon Snow, he exhaled hard, relief making his shoulders sag. "You came fast," he said. Jon Snow stepped forward, gripping Davos's arm. "Where is he?" Jon Snow demanded. The question tore out of him before he could shape it. Davos's mouth tightened. "Safe," he said, "as safe as a wolf can be in a den full of knives." He glanced at Sansa Stark, and something flickered in his gaze. Pity, respect, caution. "He's changed."
Sansa Stark's jaw clenched.
"We've all changed," she said. Davos nodded once, grim. He agreed. He turned, gesturing. "Come." They were led through corridors that grew quieter the deeper they went. The castle's bustle faded behind thick doors. Guards stood at every corner, faces hard, hands on sword hilts. Jon Snow's heart hammered. He felt like he was walking into a dream he was afraid to wake from. Sansa Stark's breath came quick beside him, and Brienne of Tarth's hand hovered near her sword as if expecting betrayal in any shadow. They reached a door guarded by two men with Manderly sigils. Davos murmured something, and the men stepped aside. The door opened, heat rolled out, and with it the smell of clean wool and with smoke and something else. Animal, wild, familiar. Jon Snow stepped into the chamber and saw movement near the hearth. A direwolf rose, black fur catching firelight. Shaggydog's lips peeled back in a silent warning, teeth flashing. His eyes locked on Ghost, and for a heartbeat the air in the room vibrated with tension. Predator recognizing predator. Ghost stepped forward, head high, unafraid. The two wolves circled, silent, sniffing, the sound of their breaths loud in the stillness. Shaggydog's hackles rose, then slowly eased. Ghost's ears twitched, reading. Then a smaller figure stepped into view behind Shaggydog.
Rickon Stark.
He was taller than Jon Snow remembered, but still too small. He was thin beneath the heavy cloak, face sharper, eyes darker. The boy's hair was longer, untamed. His wrists bore faint scars where iron had bitten. He looked at Jon Snow and did not move. For a heartbeat, Jon Snow could not breathe. His throat tightened until it hurt. "Rickon," Jon Snow whispered. Rickon's eyes flickered, uncertainty warring with something harder. He took one slow step forward, then stopped again, as if afraid that moving too fast would break the world. Sansa Stark made a sound behind Jon Snow, half sob, half laugh. "Rickon," she breathed. Rickon's gaze slid to her, and something in his face tightened. He remembered her, but not as she was now. He remembered a girl who had once brushed his hair back gently. Now he saw a woman with scars inside her eyes. "You left," Rickon said suddenly, voice rough. The words were blunt, child, and accusation in one. "Everyone left." Jon Snow flinched. "We didn't leave you," he said, voice thick. "We thought," he swallowed hard, "we thought you were gone." Rickon's jaw clenched. "I was," he said quietly. "For a long time." Osha stepped from a shadowed corner, eyes sharp, dagger at her belt. She watched Jon Snow like a wolf watches a stranger near its den. "He lived," she said flatly. "Don't waste that with pretty words." Jon Snow met her gaze and nodded once, gratitude and guilt tangled. "Thank you," he said, and meant it more than he had meant anything in weeks. Rickon stared at Jon Snow a moment longer, then his eyes flickered to Ghost, to the white wolf standing calm and watchful. Something in Rickon's expression shifted, recognition of pack, of kin, of the strange comfort of another beast who understood. Rickon took one more step forward. Jon Snow did not move. He let the boy come at his own pace, because he understood now that rushing a wounded wolf only made it bite. Slowly, Rickon closed the distance. He stopped just before Jon Snow, staring up at him. His eyes were bright, but he did not cry. Jon Snow dropped to one knee, bringing himself level, and held out his hands, palms open. "Empty. I'm here," he whispered. "I'm here now." Rickon's breath shuddered. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might refuse, might hold himself apart out of stubborn survival. Then he lunged forward, sudden and fierce, arms wrapping around Jon Snow's neck with desperate strength. Jon Snow caught him, pulling him close, feeling bones beneath cloth, feeling the tremble in the boy's body. Sansa Stark covered her mouth with her hands, tears spilling silently. Shaggydog pressed against Rickon's side, growling low, as if claiming the moment. Jon Snow held his brother and felt the North's cold loosen, just slightly, in the space between heartbeats. Outside the chamber, winter still howled. Inside, for the first time in years, House Stark stood in the same room. The reunion did not last as long as Jon Snow wanted. Could not. In war, joy was always a brief candle flame before wind. Rickon Stark pulled back first, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand as if angry at himself for letting tears come. He stepped away from Jon Snow and stood beside Shaggydog, shoulders squared, trying to look older. It was almost painful to see. A child forcing himself into armor made of pride. Sansa Stark moved toward him carefully, as if approaching a skittish animal. "Rickon," she whispered again, softer now. Rickon's gaze fixed on her. The anger from before was still there, a hard knot, but beneath it was something else. Hurt, confusion, longing. Sansa Stark knelt, the motion slow, deliberate, placing herself lower than him. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice cracked on the words. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I couldn't—" She swallowed, fighting for steadiness. "I thought you were dead. I've thought you were dead every day." Rickon stared at her, breathing shallow. "I was alive," he said, and the simplicity of it stabbed. "I know," Sansa Stark whispered, "and I will spend the rest of my life hating that I didn't know sooner." She lifted her hands slightly, palms open, the same gesture Jon Snow had used. "Can I?" Rickon hesitated. Shaggydog's tail flicked. Ghost stood a few steps away, silent and calm, watching the humans with the same wary patience he gave strangers at the wall. Rickon took a small step forward, then another. He stopped just within reach of Sansa Stark's hands and stared down at her like a judge. Sansa Stark's fingers trembled as she reached up and touched his cheek. Her touch was light, as if afraid he would shatter. Rickon did not pull away. His jaw tightened, then suddenly his face crumpled, and he leaned into her hand like he had leaned into Jon Snow's embrace, briefly, fiercely, as if taking warmth before it vanished. Sansa Stark wrapped her arms around him, holding him with desperate care. "You're here," she whispered over and over, as if the words could anchor him. Osha watched from the corner, expression hard, but her eyes glimmered with something like relief. "Good," she murmured, mostly to herself. "They found you." When the moment eased, Wyman Manderly entered, heavy in furs, cane tapping. His face was solemn, but his eyes were bright with satisfaction at the sight of two Starks in his chamber. He bowed his head slightly to Jon Snow, then to Sansa Stark, then to Rickon. "My king," Wyman Manderly said softly to Rickon, and the word hung in the air, weighty and dangerous. Jon Snow's eyes flicked to Rickon, then to Wyman Manderly. "You mean to crown him?" Jon Snow said, voice low. Wyman Manderly's smile was thin. "He is already crowned in men's hearts," he said. I only intend to make it real enough to fight for. Rickon's jaw tightened at being spoken about again. He stepped forward, small but firm. I don't want a crown, he said. Wyman Manderly's gaze softened. No, he agreed. You want Winterfell. Rickon's eyes flashed. Yes, he said. Jon Snow exhaled slowly. He looked at his brother, at the scars, at the hard set of his mouth, at the way he held himself like someone who had learned that softness was a weakness men exploited. Jon Snow felt rage rise, hot and clean. Not at Rickon, at Ramsay Bolton, at the world that had made a child into a weapon. We take Winterfell, Jon Snow said, voice steady, but we do it the right way. We don't throw men into Ramsay Bolton's teeth. Robert Glover entered behind Wyman Manderly, armor dusted with snow, face grim. Lyanna Mormont followed, bearskin cloak thrown back, cheeks red with cold, eyes bright. She saw Jon Snow and grinned like someone who had been promised a fight. So, she said, the bastard is here. Jon Snow's mouth twitched. He said, and you're still loud. Lyanna Mormont snorted. Someone has to be. They gathered around a map table in the adjoining solar, candles throwing steady light over inked lines. Wyman Manderly pointed with his cane. Roose Bolton has sent demands, he said. Hostages, grain, men. His eyes narrowed. He will squeeze every house until one screams. Robert Glover's jaw clenched. He's already squeezing, he said. Karstark riders have been seen near Deepwood. Umber men are split and frightened. If we wait too long, the North will break into pieces. Sansa Stark leaned over the map, finger tracing roads. Ramsay Bolton will expect Jon Snow to come from the north, she said quietly. He will expect wildlings to charge like fools. He will want that. He will plan for that. Jon Snow met her gaze. Then we don't give him what he wants, he said. Rickon stared at Winterfell on the map, a small inked shape that held years of pain. We make him come to us, he said suddenly. The room stilled. Wyman Manderly's eyes gleamed. Say more, he urged. Rickon's fingers curled on the table edge. He likes hunts, Rickon said, voice low. He likes chasing. He likes thinking he knows the game. His eyes lifted, cold. We make him chase the wrong thing. We make him leave his walls. Sansa Stark's face tightened as memory flashed behind her eyes. He will, she said softly. If he thinks he can have you. Rickon's jaw set. Then let him think it, he said. Jon Snow's chest tightened. No, he said sharply. You're not bait. Rickon's eyes flashed. I was bait in his yard, he snapped. I survived. I can survive again. Osha's voice cut in, fierce. Enough, she said. She stepped closer to Rickon, hand hovering near his shoulder. You're not a chain anymore, boy. Don't let them turn you into a different kind. Rickon's breathing quickened. He looked at Osha, then at Jon Snow, then at Sansa Stark, and something in him shifted, an understanding that he was not alone in deciding anymore. That was comfort. That was also frustration. Wyman Manderly lifted a hand. We do not sacrifice him, he said calmly. But we also do not ignore what he knows of Ramsay Bolton. His gaze sharpened. There are ways to lure a man without offering him the prize. False trails, rumors, a shadow of a Stark on the road. Lyanna Mormont grinned. A wolf's shadow, she murmured. Jon Snow's mind raced, pieces sliding into place. We split, he said slowly. We send word to houses that Rickon Stark lives and stands with us. That's the fire. Then we move the host through hidden paths, cut Bolton supplies, force their hand. His eyes lifted. And when Ramsay Bolton rides out to punish, we break him in the open. Robert Glover nodded once, grim approval. That I can fight, he said. Sansa Stark's fingers tightened on the map. And Peter Baelish? She asked quietly. Her voice made his name sound like a knife. Wyman Manderly's expression hardened. The veil is moving, he admitted. We have whispers. Peter Baelish will come north wrapped in good intentions. Jon Snow's jaw tightened. Then we keep him at arm's length, he said. We take his knights if he offers them, but we do not give him Winterfell's keys. Sansa Stark's eyes were cold. He will want them anyway, she whispered. Rickon looked at Sansa Stark. Who is he? He asked, suspicion sharp.
Sansa Stark, his mouth twisted.
A man who smiles while he tightens ropes, she said. Rickon stared at the map again, at Winterfell, at the roads leading in and out like veins. He felt the weight of everything. The host outside, the North's hunger, Ramsay Bolton's teeth waiting, Peter Baelish's shadow stretching from the veil. He lifted his gaze to Jon Snow. We take it back, Rickon said, voice low. All of it. Jon Snow's eyes held his. Aye, he said. We do. Shaggydog pressed against Rickon's leg, and Ghost stepped closer to Jon Snow. Two wolves in one room, two shadows of the same blood. Outside, the sea hammered White Harbor's walls, relentless. Inside, the Starks and their allies bent over maps and began to shape a war that would not be a desperate charge, but a slow tightening noose, one meant for men who wore flayed skins and called it power. In the candlelit chamber, Rickon Stark felt the North's old heartbeat under his ribs, steady and fierce. He had escaped once. Now he meant to return.